So we are going live now on YouTube.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So if you're ready, I will start with the session then.
Yeah, okay, I'm ready.
Okay, sir.
Internet unstable. Unstable. Slideshow. Mailer. அதுவே கொடுக்குது unstable. எங்க இருக்கு? இப்போ போயிடுச்சு. இப்படி வந்து பாருக்கண்ணே, அப்படி பண்ணேன்னா இப்படி அது ஒண்ணும் ஆகாது, ஒண்ணும் இல்லை, அது ஒண்ணும் இல்லை.
We are starting, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. A very good afternoon to one and all. I am Arpita from the IGCP group. Welcomes everyone to the webinar on the topic Drugs and Cosmetic Act and Overview. The Drugs and Cosmetic Act serves as a regulatory framework governing the manufacture, sale, and distribution of medicines and cosmetics in India. Enacted in 1940 and amended periodically to align with evolving standards, the Act ensures the safety, efficacy, and quality of pharmaceutical products and cosmetics. It outlines licensing, labeling, and advertising provisions, aiming to protect public health and consumer interest. The Act empowers regulatory authorities to enforce compliance and take action against violation, fostering accountability within the pharmaceutical and cosmetic industries. So, to address the topic, we have with us none other than very eminent Dr. T.N. Ravishankar, sir. And I know he doesn't need any introduction to anyone, still a small formality to welcome sir for the session. So, sir has done MBBS, DFM from Colombo. He has done FCGP, PGT MLE, also MBA. He is a family physician at the Sundar Hospital, Chennai. So, sir, with this very brief introduction of yours, I would request you now to please start with the topic for today. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, and thank you. Thanks for the nice introductory words. And literally, Madam has given a bird's eye view of what is Drugs and Cosmetic Act. Thank you. You have made my job much simpler. This is an act that I am going to concentrate only for the hospitals and for the medical practitioners. What is the law that is pertaining for them to have a pharmacy, or how to dispense medicine? Or at the end of the talk, I got a little bit of business proportions also for you of the latest technology that is being used in the medical fraternity, for both for the medical fraternity to do a better job and for the public to have an easy access to the medical and health services. Let me see the law pertaining to the pharmacy, the Drugs and Cosmetic Act, which came into force in 1940, much before the independence itself. There are a lot of definitions that has been given, the prohibitions, punishments, and are divided into various chapters and sections. But when the cosmetic rules came into force in 1945, a lot of procedural aspects which pertaining to the definitions and everything was there. And later we needed to have a little bit of additions to all these things. 1954, we have the Drugs and Magic Remedies Act, objectionable advertisements. Maybe every one of you will know what has happened in the last 2-3 months with one of the other companies that has claimed to have produced a certain cure or a well-being, but then whatever they advertise may not be true. Today, the Consumer Protection Act has a clause in which whatever you advise, you should be able to provide. If you are not able to provide, then they can be taken to task by the Consumer Protection Act 2019. We have another group of drugs that came into the force into the society, which can cause a bit of addiction due to the good, bad, and side effects of that drugs. That is why the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substance Act came into force in 1985, when people who had been prescribed as medication started misusing it. So the government came into the effect to have a regulations on it. Now it has to be prescribed. What are the drugs that come under this category? Let's see how we need to start a pharmacy. Then you need to fill the form 19, where you can prescribe drugs other than the Schedule X drugs, and the Schedule X drugs also includes the narcotic substance drugs. Form 19A, that's for a scheduled set of drugs, and Form 19C, which includes the Schedule X drugs. And for that, these fee varies from various states, but that was a standard fee that has been prescribed with the Central Act. It may vary from one place to another. And if you want to sell all the drugs, you need to have all the three licenses to sell, stock, exhibit, or offer for sale or distribution of the drugs, other than those specified in section C, C1, and X. We'll see it. X, you always need to have that extra license for it. This is the common statutory requirements that you need to have for a hospital or a pharmacy. If you have a rented premises, you need to have an agreement with a no objection certificate from a non-judicial paper worth rupees 50. And if it's your own premises, you need to have your ownership document for it. A blueprint layout for the medical stores, which has to be 110 square feet. You have your business statutory document, maybe a single proprietor or a limited liability partnership or a partnership, or you will be having most of the time your pharmacy within the hospital, and you have some statutory law by which the hospital is being established, a trust hospital or a public limited company, or a partnership firm within the family or something like that. You need to have a recovering letter with a payment challan. I know everybody knows it, but then these are the law that has been stipulated in the sections. That is why I am forced to enumerate all these things. Most important, you need to have a qualified pharmacist who has been appointed. He has to give an acceptance to work full time, an affidavit, his residence proof, and also his photograph. Sooner or later, all these things will come along with their fingerprint, all these things, because the cyber crime makes the government to be more stiffer and stringent. All the time you don't have enough adequate number of pharmacists to work in your pharmacy or in your hospital, then you have the option of getting a trained or an experienced person who has at least 4 years of training or experience to handle the sales, and that person's resident proof and his experience certificate should also be there. Every hospital can engage a person under the Apprenticeship Act, train them, and after 4 years, you can provide a certificate for the same and utilize the person. Any other documents in addition is applicable as per the respective state governments. Minimum applicable raw, that is 100 square feet or 10 square meters you need. The height of the premises of the sales will be as per the guidelines provided the drugs and cosmetic rules. That is 7 to 8 feet is already there in the National Building Code. If you need to have both retail and wholesale business, you need to have 115 square meters or 150 square feet. Everybody knows a refrigerator which is working in a working condition. That certification should be there. It's mainly to store the vaccines, medicines that need to be maintained in a temperature below 8 degrees centigrade, some liquids, antibiotics. And more important, the invoice and the working certificate of the refrigerator is very important. Air conditioner needed to be installed with the invoice of the same, and the working certificate also should be there. The air conditioner has come into force in this country in the past decade only, and earlier it was not one of the conditions for having a pharmacy. You need to have a sufficient number of cupboards to store the different types of drugs and pharmaceutical preparations. There are times when people are dependent on the building materials, and then they have using and today we have standard drugs shelf of a good quality with easily approachable to take the medications. The vital documents that need to be maintained in the pharmacy is the date of purchase of the medicine, the name and address of the person from whom purchase, and the number of the relevant license held by him. If you are buying it from a wholesaler, you need to know who the wholesaler and the entire details of the wholesale person, along with his license number and everything should be there, held with the retailing pharmacy. The name of the drugs, the quality, and the batch number is very important. Every one of you will know it when a bill has to be produced in your pharmacy. These are the basic things that need to be there. The batch number, the expiry date, the name of the manufacturer may not be so important. The quantity, the batch number, and the expiry date is very, very important today. All the softwares has provisions for the same. This is one act which has used the entire alphabetical that is available in the English literature. From A to Z, all the sections has been used for something or other to frame the rules in the Drugs and Cosmetic Act, which has the rules of 1945. Some of the rules I would like to tell you. Schedule A contains various forms and formats of letters for application of license, etc. They contain the fee structure for government labs. D is a list of drugs exempted for the provision of import of drugs. Certain points and the regulations are there in E. F1 is for vaccine. F2 is for surgical dressings. F3, this contains regulation and standards for umbilical tapes, specifically for an umbilical tapes that has been kept. F contains regulation standards for ophthalmic ointments and solutions. K contains various substances of drugs and their corresponding regulations. There are drugs which need some certain regulations. That is that. What we need to know more about is sections. Schedule C contains various biological products and the regulations. Example, serum, adrenaline, vitamins on all these drugs. And F, this contains regulation and standards for running a blood bank, because blood is not an immunological human biological product, but it is also have a components of medicine that is added to it before it has been administered. Hence, it is being governed by the Drugs and Cosmetic Act. Schedule M contains various regulations for manufacturing, the premises, waste disposal, and equipment, and all these things. Schedule O contains various regulations for disinfected fluids. You see, right in 4045 itself, the government has known about the need for a disinfection. Though, of course, the biomedical waste management came into force in 1999 only in the entire world, 97 onwards. The scope for this, the regulation for this has been in our Drugs and Cosmetic Act way back in 1954 itself. The packing size on all these things on P1, the permitted dyes and pigments in soaps and cosmetics in Schedule Q, condoms and their other mechanical contraceptive devices in Schedule R. Schedule S contains various cosmetics and toiletry and directs the manufacturing of cosmetics to confirm the latest Bureau of Standards requirements. Schedule T contains regulations for the Ayurveda, Siddha, and Unani products. We'll see about it a little later. Schedule U contains various regulation requirements for record keeping. Record keeping both at the wholesale and in the retail, and how it has to be maintained. All these things are there in Schedule U. Schedule V contains standards for drug patency. Generic drugs in W. Can you imagine in 1945 itself, they have thought about the generic drugs, the need for it in the society, and all these things. Schedule Y contains requirements and guidelines for clinical trial. Today, there is lots and lots that has been done around the world and in our country also. And Schedule LY is already there to control and regulate how a clinical trial will have to be contained. And Schedule N contains various regulation and requirements of pharmacy, which we have seen a bit of it, and a little later we'll see. Contains regulation regarding life period and storage of various drugs. Schedule P and P are all important things that we need to know. Schedule G is one drug. Most of the drugs are hormonal preparations, and every drug in the respective schedule has got certain instructions for the manufacturers. The drug label must display the text caution, it is dangerous to take this preparation except under medical supervision. It has to be displayed predominantly, and there are certain drugs under the schedule. It is well known in the fact that the population might reach the pharmacy to have their own self-medication. That is why all these rules have been framed right such a long, with all the forethinking right in the early days itself. Schedule H drugs, the label must display the text RX and Schedule H drugs with warning for it. Not to be sold by retail without the prescription of a registered medical practitioner predominantly. It can only be supplied to licensed parties. It cannot be sold with a prescription, and the only amount specified in the prescription should be shown. The time and date of prescription must be noted. And I think the complaints for this is much, much lesser, both from the pharmacy side, which are there in the public, as well as the patients who always misuse the prescription for a longer duration. but which has not been allowed as per the Drugs and Cosmetic Act, Schedule H. The drugs that come under the schedule has already been given right from your NSAIDs, your vasopressors, vaccines, sedatives, and all these things. Cannot be purchased over the counter without the prescription of a qualified doctor, and it contains almost 536 drugs from these drugs as per 2006, but then the list has gone much, much higher now. And I could not get the latest list of the drugs that is coming under the schedule. And Schedule X is another one which is very, very stringent, which has the law. We need to have a separate license for it. Prescription of a qualified doctor. The retailer has to preserve the prescription for a period of 2 years. The drugs coming under this category is also being given like phenobarbital, butyramide, methylphenylbarbital, secrobarbital, phenomethazine, cyclobarbital. Most of these anti-epileptics are all coming under the Schedule X drugs. And you need a separate license. And more important, the prescription will have to be maintained by the retailer for 2 years. I think how far we are doing this compliance is not known, because it needs the medical practitioner to prescribe a Xerox copy or at least a carbon copy of the same, so that the retailer has a copy of his prescription and can dispense the medicines repeatedly with it for a period of 2 years or whatever the time that has been given by the medical practitioner. But how far it is in compliance with society, I'm not sure about it. The time of supply for the L drug, for the X drugs, the time of supply, the date of transaction, quality received, name of the drugs has to be the manufacturer's name, batch norm, lot name. All these things have to be kept under lock and key. Keep the prescription for 2 years, reference number of the prescription, bill number and date in respect of the purchase, as well as dispense, signature of the person under whose supervision the drug has been supplied. This is possible in a hospital where you always have a shift of people working in different shifts, and so their signatures can be put down on the prescription or on the bill that has been producing it. This is a thing which most of us will not be knowing. Schedule J contains a list of various diseases and conditions that cannot be treated under any drug currently in the market. No drugs can legally claim to treat these diseases. I think everybody will be aware. You might be seeing some of the poisoning, blindness, atherosclerosis, appendicitis that needs surgery, angina pectoris will need intervention. AIDS has got medications which are controlling the disease, and there are things that are evolving in the society that can cure AIDS also. Congenital malformations will definitely need surgical changes. Change of fetal sex by drugs, which should not be or cannot be done. Coloring of the hair by dye, which is not a medication, but controlled by the Drugs and Cosmetic Act. Cataract needs surgery for the same. Diabetes cannot be cured. Today we are trying to see a cure through surgical methodology, and then it will continue to remain the Schedule J schedule only. Disease and disorders of the uterus, most of the time, either they live with the ailment of a fibroid uterus or they have a surgical correction for it. And there are at least 51 diseases which falls under the Schedule J category, where treatment and cure cannot be guaranteed. And these are some of the things which I have already told about running the pharmacy. And more important, a full-time in a retail pharmacy is told, and he must hold a degree. While the same is not in a wholesale pharmacy. A full-time pharmacist is not needed in a wholesale pharmacy, where we can have that experienced persons to do it, who have at least 4 years of experience in dealing with medicines shall mandate to be recruited for the post. Sales of drugs only under a registered pharmacy. Once a pharmacist or competent person are engaged in one medical shop, he shall not be authorized to rest other jobs outside. The compliance for the same today in a fast society may not be possible, and these changes will come over the time. If they are leaving the job, either the experienced person or the pharmacist, they need to have application filled it and give it to the drug controller for them to be removed and a new person to be recruited for the same. And today, submitting of all these things have become digital in most of the states, and an online submission is being possible now, making us making the job easier not to run around for places, because in the third cities, it will be very difficult to reach the capital of the city or the headquarters of the district to submit all these things. And today, digital technology has made things much more easier for us. Random applicable routes covering letter, payment challans, layout of the medical stores, initial entrepreneur is noticed, and all these things, document related to the business. All these things are repetition of whatever I have told earlier. In case of renewal of the license, the original license might be submitted in addition to the application form and extra particulars if needed. If you are trying to get in for more scheduled drugs to be stored under you, need to add about application for the same, pay the fee for it also. All these things will have to be done 3 months prior to the expiry of your license. There are restricted license in Form 20A and 21A, where there is no need of a supervisory or a qualified person to take care of the pharmacy. When you are going to the third tier cities, you might see some fancy stores or some wholesale markets with a small pharmacy attached to it. And these are things that come under this category of 20A and 21A. Today, there are several malls or several shops attached to a departmental store who do have license, and these license in the periphery or tier 2 cities come under the category of 20A and 21A, where there no need to be a qualified or a supervisory person with a qualification of pharmacist to run through the shop. Somebody who has well trained and an experience of 4 years can run this proprietorship, individual or whatever it is, with a limited licensing for the same. And this option has to be propagated in our country for it. Very, very important today, the compliance of the rules, the GST rules, goods and service tax are applicable to the pharmacy shop, whether it is individual or it is attached to the hospital. Hospitals doesn't come under the GST except when there is a room rent that is more than 5,000 rupees odd, but it is applicable for the pharmacy. When your annual turnover exceeds 40 lakhs or supply of goods and service interstate or through the e-commerce forms crosses 40 lakhs, then you are covered under the GST. And there is no change in all over the country. The drugs category fall under the 5%, 12%, and 18%. We will not know what is going to happen in the next 1 month. And let us all be very clear that GST is applicable for your pharmacy. A bit about the narcotic drugs. These are drugs that induce sleep. Specifically, that means opiates such as heroin, morphine, and related drugs. But more important, let us see, these are all stimulant drugs. They are stimulants, the exact opposite of narcotic, but they come under the narcotic drugs. Today, you take your coffee and tea in your afternoon or a little late in the morning, or if you want to keep yourself awake. Does coffee comes under the narcotic is also another big question, but then they are not drugs. They are the natural products, and that is why they don't come under the narcotics, but all narcotics are almost natural products only, which can they lead to drug abuse. Opiums either by smoke, eating, or injection. 3-in-1 is the opium. Heroin is a 2-in-1. They can be inhaled and injected. Vicodine, certain other tablets form, it can have both physical and mental issues. And people start using these drugs for the pain that they have in their, for the ailment that they are suffering. But over the course of time, they started abusing the drug. And that is why narcotic drugs and licensing came into force. That's a big law that is there. And you want to get the narcotic license for your drugs, particularly that are used either in the ICU or in the surgical theater, where need to induce the patient under anesthesia. These are drugs that are being used there, and you need to have a separate license for it. And the license is a big procedure, not only through the drug controller, need to go to the central excise and come through that. And that is being provided only through specific pharmacies, wholesalers, and you need to maintain a record of the same at 2 different places. A person has to be in charge for the drug. One person in the hospital will have to be in charge of the drug, and the drug has to be under the direct control with the lock and key, double lock and key. That is what they say, and that they have to maintain a record. And even the used ampules will have to be maintained and recorded and has to be returned to the distributor, and then only they can procure the new drugs. This is the law that is very strict on the Narcotic Drugs and Licensing Act. And this is the schedule 1, 2, 3, and 5, and that even codeine sulfate in your cough syrups also comes under it, and it has to be more than 200 milligrams if it has to be bounded by it. Uh, it's about how the background of the narcotic law came into force 40, 45, 50, and all these things. Let's go to know a bit about their blood banks, which is one of the most important and ideal one that is needed for a hospital to run to their ICUs. And if you have an obstetrics hospital, you need more of it. Blood is manufactured in the blood bank. That is what it means. Human blood is covered under the definition of drugs, blood with anticoagulants. And that is why it is coming under the Schedule F. The blood and components are obtained, derived, or separated from a unit of blood. And blood products are obtained from pooled plasma or blood by fractionation of drawn from a donor. How they have derived the components and products of blood is being defined in the Drugs and Cosmetic Act. The licensing authorities, not only the drug control of the respective state, it is also goes to the government of India, to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and finally the National AIDS Control Organization. Why? Because AIDS was spreading to the unscreened blood prior to being aware of HIV. 1996 onwards, the Supreme Court has banned the commercial use of donors to formulate legislation for transfusion of services. And that is why National and State Transfusion Council has been formed, and the licensing authorities at the 3 level, the drug controller, then to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and the AIDS Control Organization. And a basic need for a blood bank as per Form 27C is 100 square meter. If you want to have a components another 50 square meters extra, and then apophyresis, if you're trying to separate on all these things, another 10 square meter is needed. Grant of license in Form 28. As usual, the records document reagents and equipments buying, maintaining, storing, who supplies, what is their expiry, what is their value, and all these things, and the refrigeration with 4 to 60 degrees according with an alarm device. That's the most important in the blood bank. If the temperature is not maintained, or if your backup supply is not adequate there, and if the refrigeration stops running, then there has to be an alarm device for your people to supervise it and do the necessary for it. A compound microscope with a centrifuge table is necessary, and a water bath which can maintain 37 degrees centigrade and 56 degrees centigrade. An incubator with a thermostat control, mechanical shaker for mixing the blood. You can't do it like how we do it in a ward, trying to keep it up and down and all these things. There has to be a mechanical shaker if you have to maintain your blood banks. The ELISA reader is very important to screen for HIV, HPSAG, and all these things. You need to have a doctor with 6 month experience, a registered nurse, a blood bank technician, and laboratory assistant for a blood bank to be run without any problem and to follow the complaint that is there in this country. Education, assessment of fitness of the donor, promises for blood donation, the concern for blood donation will have to be there. Selection of donor based on their comorbidities and their HB status is also has to be seen whenever a donor reaches a blood bank for donate a blood. Then the testing the quality, and then the testing for the infection has to be there. Blood storage and inventory management. That's another one where the day when you have procured the blood from the donor, when for whom it is supplied, and which modality it is being supplied. Usually a blood bank has a right to give the blood to somebody, a hospital, or through a person that who is going to use it, a charity hospital, a mission hospital, or a multi-speciality hospital. How they are dispensing or how they are giving away the blood, in what is the container and what is the temperature that is being maintained, and who is taking it at what time and what time it reaches the other person will also has to be maintained. All these things is all possible these days with the GPRS technology, and we need the complaints for the same, because if blood has been given wrongly or it has not been stored properly, it can be a havoc for the patient after getting transfused. And having known all these things, the latest concept that has emerged in the world or that has to be adopted by our country also is the digital technology to promote your pharmacy to some extent, because in business aspect of a hospital or an individual clinic, pharmacy constitute a major chunk of the profit that has to be there in the hospital, that constitute about 30 to 40%. Most of the time we always say that the profit from the pharmacy can take care of the salaries of your employees. Today, we are in the market of competition, both in the healthcare industry, but that has to be follow some ethical guidelines. And if you follow that ethical guidelines, business will not be a problem. Let us see what is e-pharmacy in this country with the rules that has been applicable. It's an online pharmaceutical platform which enables customers to purchase medicine, health supplements, nutrition elements online without the need to visit the physical chemist shop or pharmacies. The online pharmacy sector has led to an increase in medicine deliveries, especially for the elderly customers who have found ease of access and convenience of getting their medicine delivered at their doorstep. The geriatric population has increased in the country, and so these people need to get the medication. And today, most of them are living alone, two old people at home, and somebody they are dependent on them. Today, digital platform has provided the option for them. The tier 2, 3, and 4 cities, the market has got a big scope of it. And today, this is the third largest pharmaceutical market in terms of volume, 13th largest in terms of value. Technology proven sector, technology proven secure way to get medicines delivered. Understand the word, the secure way. There are a lot of discount that has been offered by the chemist in the sector, and also the National Health Protection Scheme, such as government insurance, has given the option of procuring medicines in the medical shops that has been supported and supplemented by the central government. Increase in health insurance access has provided the use of medications everywhere. Spending medicines on medicines has increased on the household, and changing and growing patterns of the disease has made the use of medication all through their life. But before you have to do, you need to have a sweat analysis of the e-pharmacy sector in the country. The strength is the high profitability and revenue, new technological innovations, quicker shopping. Just go on the app, order it, get the medicines in another 6 to 12 hours. And it has got a lower maintenance cost while you have to travel all the way 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers in the busy traffic. And that is the strength of it. The weakness has been the lack of awareness in the public, lack of awareness even in the medical fraternity that they can provide these services to their patients, but they need a multiple checks are required to selling it online. And there are a lot of restrictions on shipping and delivering the medications because the temperature will have to be maintained till they reaches the end users. It's a less competitive market with a high demand and easily availability of the product. Somebody who orders you on the app, you can always procure it from the nearest person who has it and then gives it. The legal and the regulatory changes will be there over the time with the experience that is there in the market and the day to day. There are bound to be having lots and lots of legal regulations that is coming over the time. And technological threats and breaches can't happen. And once again, like the Narcotic Drugs Act that came much later in our society, there may be chances of drug abuse if the people who are dispensing it doesn't follow the rules that are there. The Drugs and Cosmetic Act 40, the Drugs and Cosmetic Rules 45, the Pharmacy Act 48, Information Technology Act 2000, which is the biggest guideline for this digital market. Again, the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substance Act 85, Drugs and Magic Remedies Act 54, all are applicable for the law for selling or utilizing the e-pharmacy mode. The mandatory conditions that apply, there must be a pharmacist and a registered chemist on the board. The drug prescription must be valid for accepted orders. The bill must be signed by a registered pharmacist or a chemist. All drugs must be monitored by a registered pharmacist. If you order some drug, you need to have the drugs must be sent from a chemist with a retail license in case of marketplace model. And the drug prescription will have to be monitored, checked what is the value, what is the number that has to be given, what is the dosage, and according to that only you can supply the medicine online. The problems are the potential drug abusers who buy the drug, medication mistakes, counterfeit medicines, website or account hacking do can happen in the cybercrime, and that also has to be have three layer of security before you can have your app or online medication. And today, the new bill is trying to come forward. Changes to Drugs and Cosmetic Act has triggered a debate over punishments for substandard medicines. An amendment proposed under the bill allows compounding paying a fine instead of facing imprisonment for some offenses. When you are trying to impose only fine, people can misuse the law. You need to have a stringent law whenever rules are not being followed, which has to be followed more so, particularly in the medical community and in the pharmacy. That is why the government has proposed an amendment to the law, Drugs, Medical Device and Cosmetic Bill 2023, which was introduced in 2022 by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare to replace the outdated and incorporate the latest technology that has been grown since 1955. It includes Ayush drugs also to be coming under the Act. There is a drug technical advisory board and medical device advisory board, which will be giving all the advices on the drugs, that how it has to be monitored on all these things. And there has got main important, which the government has been fighting for it, is on the price regulation, reducing the cost so that the healthcare cost can be reduced in this country. There are chapters one which have definitions, chapter two on medical device advisory board, chapter 3 on regulation and restricting the import of drugs, so that drugs which need to be given for the malignancy or certain diseases which are not available in our country can easily be imported for the use. Clinical trials and investigation of drugs is under 4, and one major change with the government that wants it on chapter 5, advancements and innovations of drugs and devices within the Ayush branch. There has been a big demand in the last decade that promotion of Ayush has come around. And if Ayush has to be taken by the society, then there has to be a lot of research and advancement in that field. And that is why government has been trying to have a separate chapter on this. Drugs are the one the medical community depends so much to give relief and cure for the patients. And if the drugs has some standards maintained for it, I think the quality of medical services that can be provided to the society can be good. The standards, the minimum standards are there for the medical society, medical community to follow it. And there are not minimal standard, the maximum standard that has been provided in producing a drug, and how a pharmacy will have to be maintained, how a blood bank will have to be maintained, how a narcotic license have to be obtained, and to give the best of services to the society. Thank you all for your patient hearing on this vital topic on Drugs and Cosmetic Act. I have not touched upon the clinical trials, manufacturing of drugs, which doesn't come on our day-to-day or routine purpose. But then if there are centers which are doing drug trial, they will be given the rules according to that, and they will have to following with an MOU with somebody who's bringing down the patients to them. And that's a big chapter that need to be discussed in details about it. Thank you all for your patient hearing this afternoon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It was indeed very informative, sir. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, sir, we have started receiving a few queries.
Yeah.
Sir, the first question is, how does the Act impact the use of off-label medication in clinical practice?
Optimal medication in clinical practice.
Sir, sorry. Sir, it's not optimal, it's off-label medications.
Off-level. Can you spell it?
Sir, it's OFFLABEL.
Of affordable. I think affordable.
Maybe a typing mistake or something else. You are speaking about optimal. You can continue with that, sir.
Optimal medication is not under the purview of the Drugs and Cosmetic Act. It is under the purview of the protocols of the medical community. So optimal medication or whatever it is under our textbooks. It is given by your pharmaceutical books. What is the dosage? How long it has to be given for which ailment? All these things are being are being guided by our protocols, not by the Drugs and Cosmetic Act. Drugs and Cosmetic Act is particularly for the manufacturing, storing, selling, documentation of the pharmacy and all these things. They don't have guidelines, they don't have the right to guide the medical community how much and what level, what dose and all these. That is our standard treatment protocols.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Next, coming to a very crucial question. How should a doctor respond if he comes across any substandard drug in their practice?
Code of Medical Ethics also gives guidelines for that, and everybody knows it. We will not be able to find out that is a substandard drug. We always have some thought that when your medication has not produced a desired result in the patient of giving relief, your diabetes is not coming under control. We always think that this drug is substandard. You have given your paracetamol, the temperature doesn't come down. We always think that's a substandard. If you need to prove it, it is a substandard drug, you need to give it to a government lab, find out the level of the medication that is available, and then only you can give a complaint to the Drug Controller Authority of India or to the respective state with a sample of the batch in which you have an evidence that it has got a substandard. Or else you can always call the drug controller, who always takes the drug, gives it on behalf of the respective governments, and assess the quantity, quality of the drug, and then give back a report. This is often done by the drug controller, who has the rules that they need to inspect every pharmacy, be it within the hospital or a separate pharmacy or in a mall or whatever it is. The rules applicable to them is that they need to inspect them every 3 months, see the records, not only maintain the record. If they find some new pharmaceutical or new marketing agency that has brought out a drug, they need to take the drug authorized signature from the person who owns the shop, and then give it to the licensing, to give it to the assessing authority, get the level of drugs that is being there as per the batch, as per the labeling in the product. If the product says paracetamol 500 milligrams, it has to have 500 milligrams. There is a percentage of plus and minus in it, but then that is there within the pharmaceutical industry, that they have to know it, and they will have to maintain it all the way. All it has to be proved. You cannot say clinically the patient is substandard. You need to prove it from a licensing lab, telling it what is the concentration of medicine available in that medicine.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Thank you. Um, what are the ethical considerations a doctor must keep in mind when involved in a clinical trial?
Clinical trial is a big issue. A clinical trial cannot be done. They have to go to a ethics committee. Ethics committee are there in a lot of medical colleges and everywhere. You need to go to the ethics committee, get an approval. You have to tell them how we are going to randomize the patient, how we are going to bring your patients, what is a questionnaire you are going to give it to the patient, and if you are going to involve the patient on any investigations or evaluation, what are the evaluations that are going to do, how we are going to do, who is going to fund this whole research or drug trial. If the drug trial is going to be done by one of the pharmaceutical company, the disclaimer that it is not having a business proportion on that, and that business proportion should not be transferred on the doctor who's going to do the clinical trial or whatever it is. All these things will have to be given to the ethics committee. In that, all the medical, most of the medical colleges will have the ethics committee. In fact, my own Indian Medical Association branch in Tambaram has an ethics committee. I'm part of it as a legal consultant for it. We go through the whole process. We examine the whole project, how they supply, and then they have a cross verification with them with a personal interview. And based on that, with some suggestions or with some modifications, we give an approval for it. And then only anybody can do a drug trial in this country. And then finally, it has to be submitted to the ICMR or to a journal or to an index journal for it to be published.
Right, sir. Right, sir. It's a long procedure.
Yes,
So,
yes.
sir, this was yes, yes, sir. So, sir, these were all the questions for today. Thank you, sir. Thank you for answering them so well. And since there are no more queries, so I would like to conclude the session here. Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for your presence. Thank you for giving us your precious time.
Thank
And
you
of
for the
course,
opportunity. Thank you for your opportunity.
thank you so much, sir. We will await for next session with you. I really enjoyed the session,
Thank
and
you.
hopefully all the audiences who have joined, they have enjoyed too. So, with that note, sir, I'm concluding the session here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.